Okay, so welcome everybody to this talk. Full disclosure, this is my very first talk, so I'm very nervous and I didn't expect so many people. My name is Guillaume. I'm a programmer at Big Bad Wolf Studio, and today I'll be talking to you about a tool that we made that generates dialogue sequences from dialogue scripts. So where's my, yeah. Okay, quick word about our studio. We are Big Bad Wolf. We are based in France, as you can tell by my accent, in Bordeaux. And we are part of Cyanide Studio. And we focus mainly on narrative RPGs. So basically RPGs, but with lots of dialogues, lots of choices and consequences. And we currently have two games out. The Council that came out in 2018, that was not made with Unreal, and recently Vampire the Masquerade Swansong in 2022, made with Unreal 4. So, quick overview. First of all, we'll talk about our problem, what we want to solve here. Then I'll talk a bit about our dialogue editor, so the tool that we made to write dialogues. Then I'll go over all of the generation process. So how do we create our events, our logic? How do we select our cameras and our animations for the sequences? And then I'll talk about post-generation edits. So basically when you've already generated your content and your dialogue has to change, so you have to generate again and you don't want to lose what you previously changed. And at the end, we'll talk about some sequencer pitfalls. So basically things that we did and these were mistakes and we don't want you to make the same mistakes. Yeah, let's go. So what's our problem here? As I said, we are focusing on narrative RPGs. So we have a huge quantity of dialogues, of non-linear dialogues. To give you an idea, the Conceal was 180,000 words and Swansong 140. As a comparison, The Witcher 3 was about 450,000 words, but The Witcher is a game that takes 100 hours to complete, and our games are between 15 to 20 hours. So that's very dense in terms of dialogues and branches and all that. And of course, all of these dialogues need to be cinematics, with cameras, with animations, with subtitles, lip sync, and all that. So that would require a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of cinematic designers. And we don't have that. So we thought, how about a system that would do that for us? And it turns out we were not the first to think about that. So if you are interested in the subject, there are some great talks at GDC in 2016 by CD Projekt for their tools on The Witcher, and in 2018 by Ubisoft for Assassin's Creed Odyssey. So we took a bunch of stuff from these talks and we decided to make things Unreal. So we wanted to have everything inside of the engine. So we didn't want to have an external dialogue editor and you have to export your dialogue and import it in Unreal and then generate your sequence. No. So we basically made two tools inside of the engine, a dialogue editor and a sequence generator. So, dialogue editor. So basically, inside of Unreal, our dialogues are assets, specific assets that we made. So you can have it in your content browser, and if you open them, you open this wonderful editor. And inside of here, you can create lines, you can specify characters for the whole dialogue or for a specific line, which one is the speaker, the listener, what's their emotion, what's their posture, are they standing, sitting. You can create all of your logic, your choices, your conditions, your jumps, your ends of dialogues. So you can do everything inside of here. And then we take all of this data and we use it to create our sequences. As a side note, we are also using this editor to handle our documents, some gameplay elements, and most of our written content. So basically, when you have to read an email on a screen inside of the game, it's usually going through here, so everything goes through the same pipe in terms of localization and all that. Inside of the dialogue editor, things are automatically split into sequences. So basically, every time you have a possible branch, because of a choice, because of a condition, it creates a new sequence. As you can see, you have sequence 420 and 436 and all that. And you can also subdivide your dialogue in sub-dialogues. So maybe you have a cinematic intro for your dialogue, and then you have a stage if you are talking to the character for the first time, and then another if you are talking to him for the second time, and maybe some busy barks at the end because the character has nothing to say to you anymore. So yeah, you can do some housekeeping, and it's very clever, and it's made by this guy. So why sequencer? Well, it's pretty obvious. It's in the engine. It's the standard tool to make cinematics. You can do everything inside of here, your cameras, your events, your animations, all of it. And one thing that was really important for us was that we wanted the generated assets to be altered by our content designers. So maybe you generate your whole sequences, but there is a very specific moment with a lot of tension, or you have to give an object to the player, and you want specific cameras and specific animations at this point. So you want an animator or a cinematic designer to be able to go inside of it and change stuff. So basically that's why we are generating sequencer, so that we can edit it after the fact. So we have 3 dialogue types in Vampire the Masquerade Swansong, at least. Your main type of dialogue is stage dialogue, so it's your standard RPG dialogue with a camera facing the guy who's talking, your animations, and your lip sync. Then we have 3C dialogues and barks, so basically the same thing but without cameras, and most of the time your character will have free movement, so you will not lock it in place. And then cinematics, which are very specific because we just generate the logic, so the events and subtitles, but no camera, no animation, no lip sync, nothing. So it's an empty canvas, and our cinematic designers can go crazy in it. So I'll show you a quick video, about 2 minutes, of a dialogue from Swansong that was previously all generated and then altered by cinematic designers. I'll be talking a bit over it because it shows all of the different types of dialogues. So first, a cinematic, everything made by hand, except the subtitles and the jumps.
Lieutenant Anderson, I'm in charge of the investigation.
Special Agent Smith, FBI.
Really? Smith? Is that some kind of joke?
No, why?
Let it go. Never mind.
And now we jump into the stage.
We got a
so
call
this
from
is
the
generated.
caretaker around 2:15. He told us
this
that
is a
one of his
specific
residents
camera
was brought
made
in
by
with an
hand to show the
injury
body.
carried by his bodyguards.
Back
Sent
to the
a squad
generation.
car that got here around 2:45.
All of the choices also are generated events
When I stepped
from our tool.
inside, the guys came face to face with that.
Do we know who the victim is?
Yeah, he had his ID on him. It's the owner, a guy named Jason Moore. I don't know who this guy pissed off, but things didn't work out too well for him.
Did you secure all the exits and entrances to the building?
Yes, we've got men on the ground floor and in the parking garage.
How do you get to the parking garage?
You'll have to ask the caretaker. He's the one who took my men down there.
Go on.
We're still looking for them.
Again, specific camera.
We're waiting on forensics for
movements.
everything else, but they're busy with another case. So, you're here to take over the case?
No. I'm working on something else. Moore's name popped up in one of our investigations, but I can't talk about it.
Okay, I'll let my team know.
And now we get out, and there's a 3C dialogue,
Agent
so
Smith
she's
from the
talking, but you
FBI
can
is
run
here.
around.
You're still in charge of the
you have no
investigation,
cameras.
so please cooperate with him.
So that's the 3 main types of dialogue: the cinematic, the stage, and then the barks or 3C dialogue. Okay, so now about the generation process. So, as I said, we are using sequencer for non-linear dialogues, which is kind of a pain because sequencer is really meant to do something linear. So basically you have one sequence is one cinematic. So what we did is we made one big sequence for the whole dialogue that we call the master sequence. And then inside of it, we create subsequences. And these subsequences correspond one-to-one to the sequences we showed in the dialogue editor. So basically each of these red subsequences are a logical chunk of a dialogue. And every time you have a jump or a choice, new sequence. You also have specific sequences like this little one. It's a loop sequence because basically there is no infinite loop feature in sequencer. So what we did is we just created a sequence with a standard camera, standard animation idle, and an event at the end that says loop, please. So yeah, that's basically how it works. And inside of these subsequences, you have your actual cinematics with your animations and your tracks. So events. Events are really the backbone of the sequence and the whole dialogue. We are doing all of our logic with it. Also, as a note, most of the screenshots are from Unreal 4 because that's where Swansong was made. So events, we basically go through each line of dialogue in order, and for each line we create at least one event. So we have event for subtitles, for jumps, for go-tos, for choices, for blueprint actions. It's something that you can set in the editor. You can basically say, for this line, I want this specific blueprint function to be called at this time. And for the end of the dialogue, because it's non-linear and there can be multiple ends to a same dialogue. And basically we take all of our data and we put it in the payloads. As you can see here, you have the choice event, for instance, and inside of it you have everything you need to run it at runtime. So the ID of the line in the dialogue editor, the choice you have to answer if it's timed, is it a crucial choice, which is something specific for Swansong, and all of that. And then we use it at runtime. Cameras and animations. Before I talk about cameras, I need to introduce you to a specific blueprint that we call the stage. It's basically a blueprint actor with a bunch of camera components. So it's a camera set. And you also have slots that will tell you where the character is supposed to be. The red slot is for the player and the yellow for the NPC. You have lights that will go on or off at runtime depending on which camera is active. And you can have one stage per sub-dialogue. So inside of the same dialogue, you can have multiple different stages. Or you can have no stage if it's a cinematic or a bark. So we have a collection of stage in Swansong, so depending on the number of characters or the posture, so maybe we have one with lower cameras because we know that the NPC will be sitting or anything, so you can choose from the collection. So now that we have a camera set to choose from, we can select our cameras. So we select them based on rules. So for each sentence, we try to get a camera with a little rule that in Swansong, I think it was a minimum of 2.5 seconds per shot and maximum of 9 seconds. So if you have very short sentences, they will share the same camera shot, or it will look very robotic otherwise. And basically for each sentence or each shot, we go through all of the cameras that we have and we try a bunch of rules. And if they pass the rule, they get points. If they don't get points. And at the end, we select the best. So basic rules like, is the speaker visible? Is the player in the choice loop? Because we wanted to have specific close-up shots for player while they are thinking. Is the shot coherent with the previous one in terms of cinematic? Because if you have maybe a close-up on a character, you don't want after that another close-up on the same character with a slightly different angle. It will be very ugly. And we also have some rules for the cameras to be compatible with blending, because in Swansong we are trying to avoid cuts to start and end dialogues. We are basically blending in and out with the camera. So there's a rule that says the last camera, if it can be the end of the dialogue, it has to be in the back of your character so you can blend out safely. To specify variables and metadata, we just fill up a bunch of variables in our camera components in the stage. So maybe which character is being focused, what's the shot type. Here you have the full list of the shot types we had in Swansong. So is it a close-up, a full shot, an American shot? So you can know which one can go after which one. And we are creating the rules. They used to be made in C++, but it's not ideal because you have to bother a programmer every time you want to change something, which is not great. So we switched gears recently and we made them in blueprints so they can be created and modified by your designers. So basically, if they say, okay, this camera is happening way too many times, so maybe they can switch the rules and the points that they give and generate again and find the sweet spot. And then you can store them in presets that we store in a data table. So maybe you have a very intimistic dialogue, so you want a preset that has a rule that says, yes, I want more close-ups, maybe. So for every sub-dialogue or every stage, or even for the whole project, you can set up which kind of presets you want. And it's very simple. This is a full rule. It's actually the rule that says, okay, it's a choice. Please take a choice camera. Animations. We have two types of animations, basically. We have the posture, so it's basically an idle. Very few movements because we are putting a lot of additive animations on top of it, so if it moves too much, you can end up with very broken results. And we basically, for the length of the sentence, or the next one, we just put it, it's the track that you can see at the bottom. And it, of course, depends on the pose and the emotion that you set up in the dialogue editor. And then we add additive gestures on top of it. We have two types. The first one we are trying to find are the keyword gestures. So we have big data assets that describe some keywords. So maybe you have the you keyword, but it corresponds to a bunch of words. You, yourself, yours. And we have data assets that describe that. And we run an audio analysis on all of our sentences. And if we find one of these keywords at some specific time, we want to try and use a keyword animation at that time. But not too much, maybe 1 or 2 per sentence, depending on the length of the sentence, because it can be very cluttered at some point and it's ugly. And when we have our keyword gestures, we are just filling in the blanks with fill-in gestures. So basically your character just moving its arm to say that he's talking. And you just fill the blank until you have full animation for the length of the sentence. We used to store animations in data tables. We are switching to data assets because data tables can be very big very quickly and you end up loading a bunch of stuff that you actually do not want. So yeah, data assets are great. We basically have one data asset per posture. So maybe this one, for instance, is for the relaxed standard posture. You can see the emotion, you can see the pose type, and all of the gestures that goes with it. The standard gesture, the listener gesture, we have some listener gestures, very small, just to show that they are not dead. And then your keyword gestures. And you flag them with all of the data you want, and you basically try to get this when you're generating and find the best animation in the assets. We are not using animations like directly from the tracks. We are feeding them to our animation blueprints. We're using the slot name that you can find on your animation sections. You can basically tell any slot name, and then you can get them with a special node in your animation blueprint, and then you can blend them with everything else in your animation graph, which is great when you are trying, like us, to switch from gameplay to dialogue in a seamless way, because everything blends together. Quickly for audio and lip sync, because it's kind of a different thing, because we're not generating them per se. It's basically assets that you get after your recordings. So we are just using naming conventions. So here you have, for instance, our voices. So VX underscore name of the dialogue underscore ID of the line in the dialogue editor. So when you are generating, if we find this asset, we just paste it in, and that's it. And then we base everything on the audio timing. So basically, if you have 5 seconds of audio, you are trying to 5 seconds of animations. We had no preview of lip sync or audio in Swansong, and it was a pain. So now we are generating on the fly some text to speech and some lip sync, even if it's placeholder. It can get you a feel for the dialogue and for the mood and for the length. So maybe you can do some retakes before getting to your recordings, and you can save some time and some money. So this was overall the generation process. So the hard part is actually the post-generation edits. Because when you're generating during your production, things will happen. Even late in production, sometimes your dialogue will change because there will be cut content or new content, or maybe the whole dialogue will completely change because of the logic of the game. But you've already generated it, and you have changed your cameras and changed animations, and you really don't want to lose that. So we tried to make a system that could keep all of the handcrafted work while generating again. What we did could be similar to a version control merging system. We are doing it per sequence. So basically, we can lock a sequence in Sequencer. It's a standard Sequencer feature. You just right-click and lock, and it goes red like that. So when we are generating the generation process, we'll tell, okay, we have these sequences that are locked. We put them away. And as we are generating, if we find one with the same name, we basically, instead of generating, we paste it in, because the names are based with the ID of the first line of the sequence. So it doesn't change that often. So yeah, you just paste it. And if you have a locked sequence that the generation process did not know where to put, it will just prompt you and say, okay, I have this one, I don't know where to put it, so I will put it here. So if you need to copy paste stuff that you have here and put it in new sequences because the dialogue has completely changed, you can get it. We also have something that we call the partial regen, so you can just generate the stuff that you want. So maybe I just want to generate this subsequence, or maybe just my animations. Or maybe I'm very happy with my animations, but the cameras are not good, so you just switch your rules a bit, and then you generate just the cameras, or audio, or events, anything. And now lip sync and text-to-speech also. We have some saved folders that are protected from generation. You can set them in your content, in your project settings. We used in Swansong, we had the audio, light, and VFX folders. So basically everything that's in there, even though the sequence is not locked, it will not generate again. It will just put on top of it, because there is a high chance that you actually generate it again, but the timings will be the same. But everybody has to keep an eye on it, and you have to run some QA on it, of course, to be sure that it's the case. And you can also lock the whole dialogue if you want. Just a checkbox, and if you try to generate, there will be a warning saying no. So after all of these experimentations, we came up to the conclusion that we need to minimize the need for generations, because the less you have to generate, the less mistakes and less conflicts you will have. So as I said earlier, in Swansong, we copied all of the data in the payload of the event, which is great because you don't have at runtime to go and find something in your dialogue. but it's not that great, because let's say for the event that I showed for choice, maybe now I want the choice timer to be 5 seconds. I put that in the dialog editor, and now my event is obsolete. So I have to generate it again. We don't want that. So basically what we do now, we just store in the payload the dialog and the ID of the line, because these change basically never. And we can go at runtime inside the dialog editor, and with this information we can find anything we want, and it's pretty fast. So few sequencer pitfalls. It's not all sequencer, but basically yes. So mistakes were made, don't do it. Subtitle tracks, for instance. For Swansong, we used events for everything, for subtitles, for instance. And basically, it's very hard to navigate inside of these little white things, and you don't know which one is the event that you want. You don't know how long the duration is. So you just have to right-click and find the properties and try to search inside of it. It's a pain. So what we did, we hesitated at first, but yeah, do it. Do your custom tracks. Custom tracks are great. They are not so hard to do. There's not really a documentation, sadly, but you can go in the engine code and look at some simple tracks from sequencer and copy paste the code and do your own. So that's what we did for subtitles, for instance. So now we have something like that on the bottom. So you have the preview of the text on it, and it's readable. You can adjust the duration. You could even use the little thingy for a blend in and out for the animation tracks and use it in here to blend in and out your subtitle or anything you want. So yeah, don't hesitate to create custom tracks. It can save you a lot of time. Marked frames, use them. They are great. It's in the engine. We didn't use them in Swansong. You basically find a frame that you like, you give it a name, and it will show up like that. So what we did is we automatically named the frame for each line with the ID of the line. And with that, you have a bunch of native functions inside of Unreal that allows you to jump to a marked frame, to play to a marked frame, to skip, to find the next one. So it's great for jumping around. It's great for skipping sentences. That's what we are using right now to skip sentences. And we recompute where they should be every time you save the sequence. Because maybe you are working on a cinematic and your cinematic designer will switch something and change the value of a subtitle or put it somewhere else. It recomputes when you save. And it's also great to find stuff inside of your master sequence, because this is a screen from the master sequence. So maybe I'm searching for the ID 44. I can see where it is and in which sequence it is without having to look in the dialog editor. Character displacement. That was kind of a headache. So basically, as I said, we are switching seamlessly from gameplay to dialogues. So we are using possessable. We are just possessing the characters from the game in sequencer. And when you are working with cinematics, you will probably move your character around with transform tracks and root motions and all that. And if you are doing that, it will preview your character moving. And if you save your map at this specific time, the character will stay in this place and be saved in this position. So after that, you will commit, and the next person will open the map, and the NPCs are all over the place, and nothing works anymore. So we found a solution. We basically added a safety mechanism on world save. So every time you save your map on the autosave also it works. On pre-save, so just right before the save, we close sequencer, which will cause all the characters to go back to their gameplay position. And after the save, we reopen sequencer at the right frame. So your content designer will not see a difference, and it will save you a lot of bugs. We also close sequencer automatically when we start a play in editor session, because if you have a transform track open in the editor and you're playing the same dialogue inside of the editor, you can have some very janky bugs because the sequencer will not know which one to trust. Working with multiple cameras can be a pain in sequencer, multiple camera components, because as I said, in our stage actor, we have a lot of components for the cameras, but basically the camera cut track lets you choose an actor for a shot, not a component. And that's not great. So what we did is we basically spawned camera actors for every camera component that copies the data from it. So it's not ideal. We are trying to find something better. Maybe at some point sequencer will allow you to select a component in the camera cut track. This would be great. So yeah, be mindful of that. Runtime cameras. So this is more of a runtime problem. Your sequences are basically set in stone, and in Swansong we can talk to characters that can move around. So maybe the character will go close to a wall, and then you will start the dialogue, it will turn to you, and all of your cameras are inside the wall, and nothing works. So you have to find some runtime strategies. So for instance, what we did is just we check every time we have a camera cut, we check if the camera is valid. We did at the start of the dialogue a little sphere cast to roughly the size of the head of the character to see, okay, can we see the head? Yeah, okay, the camera is good. So you can do that. You could maybe select a camera on the fly, but you have to stay on this track until you can get back on your feet, because with nonlinear, you really don't know where you will end. You can also have your slots stuck in the environment, so you have to find the right position and try and error. And sometimes we had to cut and forget about the blending because it was too much. Final road, I have no idea if I was too fast or not, but basically we created this tool. We find it very effective to create our procedural cinematics. It's very fast. You basically click on it and it's just a few seconds to generate your cinematic. You have an instant preview, and now we have text-to-speech and all that, so you can play your dialogue right away with all of the logic. It puts less strain on your cinematics production, but you still have the freedom because it's sequencer and you can modify it as you will. We are still using it in our production right now. We had the text-to-speech and the lip sync on the fly. We have our custom tracks. We are integrating some audio third party. We did some tracks for Wise. Now you can basically select which kind of tracks you want to generate for every project. So yeah, it's evolving and it's great. And we will keep using sequencer because it's good and it's constantly evolving. For instance, now you can, it's been some time now, but you can blend cameras together in sequencer. When we started working on Swansong, you couldn't. And now maybe we would have used that. So yeah, keep using sequencer. So I think that's what it is. So thank you for listening.